Hi, Mark. Welcome to the Power Talk Show powered by Business Talks Weekly. Thank you so much for joining our channel, our podcast today. Before we dive into a conversation, can we talk about your professional background a bit and what led to the creation of My Grow?
Sure. Well, let's just say what MyGrow is, and then I can give you the background. MyGrow is a technology or a SaaS model for helping people become more emotionally intelligent and thereby, especially in their workplace, that the workplace culture can be more emotionally intelligent because the people are. And it grew out of the vision of two people who are based in Cape Town, South Africa, who were childhood friends growing up. One went on to become a psychologist, and the other one went on to become a filmmaker and a bit of a theologian and philosopher himself. And they began to put together this way that you can train your brain over time to be more empathetic, to be more positive, to do a better job of making decisions, to notice your emotions but not be triggered by them, and to work systematically and with the support of other people in your organization to get that done. So that's what MyGrow is, and they've done a great job of working with across industries in Africa, everything from Coca-Cola to some embassies to major department stores and on and on. So my background growing up in the States is one where my education, all that, I got deeply involved in organizational development. So what makes an organization work? How do you get systems to work together? And then I got deeply enamored and did some graduate work around group process and group decision making. I also went deep on understanding money and its dynamics, especially in organizations, because there's nothing like money to make dysfunction rise to the surface. And for us, now here's the linkage, for us to become emotionally unaware. Because now we're responding out of fear or anger or a desire to run away or hide or something. And in order to get reset and to be able to contribute to systems like this for the well-being of all and to carry out your organization's mission, to be a leader who is aware of how the systems work together and what people need, in addition to being self-aware, and what tools help us do this. And one of the great tools that I was so glad to find was MyGrow. And so I formed a business relationship with them to help distribute some of that within North America. But I've just been so impressed with how this particular approach and the pricing model they put on it makes it possible to work with frontline workers, not just the executive class of the organization, but anybody who works in the organization to really work at becoming aware of themselves, aware of their emotional wake, aware of being able to work in groups of people and get things done in a way that you want to be with the people yet again, as opposed to I want to avoid you. So that's kind of the journey.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mark, for that wonderful introduction. So, before I ask you more about My Grow, I want to first understand from you how important is mental well-being today, fast growing startup or business environment?
So general mental well-being matters. If we are workers, even if we're laborers, our ability to manage what we're increasingly calling our body battery includes our mental well-being. And this is all integrated. So you take care of your body with adequate rest and diet, it's going to have an effect on your mental framework. Your mental framework is going to have some impact upon whether you keep up physical disciplines or not. These things are deeply, deeply interrelated because we live in a physical system that includes our brain. And when our brain and our body are working together, then you have a mindset. You have a way of facing the world, and you want to be able to have healthy perspective and therefore healthy choices. And underneath all of that are healthy beliefs, not destructive ones. And so how important is it? It's critical. It's like a centerpiece. It's a foundation or a lodestone. It is, a starting point, because if we're off in some way, we will keep accelerating those kinds of choices, which brings harm And you end up meeting people who they churn through jobs every couple of years. They've got to reset, try again, start again, and they're cycling through the difficulties of having beliefs that aren't helpful for them and are harmful for others, and therefore actions that are harmful, and therefore a mindset that keeps being reinforced that people are against me, no one's ever giving me a chance, everybody hates me, that kind of stuff. So the mental health that we work at, not just inherit, matters a great deal in the workplace. We could get very specific, but it matters at its starting point.
Absolutely. I am with you, and I absolutely agree with you. Coming back to my grow, Mark, how are you helping your executives or your clients achieve
Yeah.
all these targets? What is your core focus?
Well, let's start with how I work with a client. So I'm a process consultant. So I don't start with here's things I want to sell you. I start with the client telling me what they'd like to work on, where they feel stuck, where they would like to get to in relationship to where they are. And that is a very delicate kind of conversation to have. They have to trust you to be honest about that. So I'm in a lot of conversations where literally, you kind of look both directions. Is there anybody around here who can hear me? Is the door closed? Okay, here's what's really going on. That's the kind of conversation I'm in. So what I want to hear is, what do they not just need to do, but what are they actually willing to do? And then who would they bring in to help them get there? And what does success look like? So you start iterating what those things are in order to help them move from here to there. Well, quite often this involves the right people in the right seats and their own growth in order to be able to move the organization from where it is to where they want to go. And that means people have to keep growing. They have to, that leader of the organization has to keep growing. So I'm in those kinds of conversations, and often, more often than not, their own awareness of their impact on others matters. And then the people with whom they're working, their ability to stay focused and in the conversation and not to be reactive, that also matters. So what tools will help us grow our ability to have positive regard for other people, to be aware of our emotional wake, to be able to have the conversation we're in be the actual conversation we need to have? That takes emotional intelligence skills. So then the question becomes, how do we teach them? So there's two ways that Micro works. The first and foremost is for the organizational culture to work at emotional intelligence together. And Micro has got this robust suite of tools that helps groups. They've gamified it even, so you can compete with each other and so forth, but about 10 to 15 minutes a day maximum. Sit down at your desk, you watch a video that's entertaining, you answer a couple of questions, you do a little of exercise, you're done. You do it again tomorrow, and then the next day. And over time, this kind of drumbeat of working at being more positive or being more empathetic, while others are doing the same thing in their own right, it begins to create like a snowball effect. Now, you're in Dubai, so you don't have a lot of snow unless you go to a environment where they're creating false snow. But we know
Artificial
what a
snow. Yeah,
snowball is, right?
yeah,
It gathers
absolutely.
momentum and it gathers extra snow. So that's what Micro is built to do. So in the workplace, that really works very, very well. I have other clients who are individuals. I just work with them as a person. They're working on their organization, but I meet with them every month and we talk through the things that are the most pressing for them or their biggest opportunity that they want to make sure that they really reach. And for a number of them, Micro is a great tool that we use where they're reinforcing the things that we're talking about every day, and then I'm talking with them once a month. And so hey, what are you learning? What are you seeing? What's going on in you? So it's a great tool in the toolbox for an individual. And it's a wonderful tool. And it was built for an organizational culture to work at this together.
That's very interesting. And Mark, as you were talking about emotional intelligence, we cannot leave artificial intelligence, AI, and LLM models that are currently into play. How does something a platform built on AI can also help and integrate, solve and reduce the stress for an executive or a professional employee?
I don't consider myself an expert. I consider myself a student of it like everybody else who's trying to figure out where to use this and how to use this. So I can only tell you what I'm observing with my own practice and what I hear executives telling me. At this point, artificial intelligence, we need to remember that the word there is artificial, as opposed to real. And in that, it will mirror humans and maybe even amplify some of what is not only the good thing about being human, but the struggles that humans have. So let's just take the idea of hallucinating and having false memories. Well, over and over again, we're seeing artificial intelligence is able to hallucinate in a virtual way, and we need to double check its veracity, just like we have to check with any human around that. So, is this okay, we might trust, but we're still going to verify. And we can't set aside verifying and just trust what an AI engine would tell us, just like we would with a human. And I would say that dynamic plays forward, and it's accelerated, and it's larger. So we have to be even more vigilant, even as we receive some benefit. The other thing that I'm noticing is that right now, nuance, the ability to make the intuitive leap. I know that that's the hope of a lot of the programmers that are developing AI engines, and there may be some signs they're seeing where intuitive leaps and innovative things might be happening. But right then in the moment, I'm not personally seeing that yet. So, what's happening in the market today, who's got something going on, the things that you learn across the coffee table, that stuff I don't think is going to go away. And I want to make one more comment about it. But what I'm trying to say right now is that I don't see the ability to manage nuance showing up in most of the engines yet in the right now. But what I think is going to happen is, don't call me a prophet here, but I'm feeling a little like I'm going to sound prophetic. I think humans are going to have more resistance to what is happening with some of this, and will actually not put some information out in cyberspace. And as a result, some information, some things that people are doing is not going to be visible, not right away. There'll be even more vigilance around IP protection and so forth, that there'll be new findings that are not going to be uploaded to the cloud, are not going to be searchable, not immediately. So to be in the right now moment with things of developing knowledge, I'm not sure AI is going to carry all of that freight yet, and may never be able to, simply because even if an AI engine puts out something, here's an innovative thing, I think those who own that engine aren't necessarily going to make it publicly available,
Yeah.
at that point. So I think there's some of that that will still have to be sorted out.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with you because there are certain businesses who are hesitant to put their financial numbers, when it comes to
Exactly.
chat GTP. They want to some kind of have a control when about their internal data, financial data as well. Mark, what is next for you? What is your vision in the next 3, 5 years? What are you looking at?
Yeah, I just really in a fortunate spot, even because the vision that I had was to create a organizational development firm where a consultant could have an entire career. Not just be, okay, I'm working here between jobs, I'm looking for a permanent assignment. No, this is what I want to do. I want to help organizations, I want to help leaders, and I can do this for my entire career. Well, we created that firm, Design Group International, and built it up from its founding into operational maturity. We created a training arm called the Society for Process Consulting, sold my stake. So I've lived that whole organizational cycle from founder to predecessor. And so now for my next 5 to 10 years, maybe longer, but what I really want to do is to be available to those long time leaders who are looking at their next round of strategy. And as they look at that next round, they're pretty sure, when we get this thing up and running, or when we achieve these things, I won't be in the driver's seat anymore. I'll be at retirement. I'll be ready to sell. I'm going to need somebody else with different skills than me, and I'm not going to be the person. And managing that transition so that their organization doesn't lose value, but that successors can be slingshotted into the future. those conversations at those moments where so much value can be lost is a real privilege to be a part of that with those leaders. I've had some experience across a long career to be able to help that conversation take place. And doing that repeatedly with a broad variety of clients is my vision, just to be available to their visions as they see them enacted.
That sounds interesting. And when I look at you and when I hear you, you sound very passionate. One
I've been called that, yes.
yeah. Final question, Mark. I ask this to all my guests on the show. What advice or principle did you receive that changed your perspective on how you look at things, professional level as well as personal level?
Well, there are, I think anybody who's lived as long as I have now, you have three or four things that you can point to that were pivotal. And so where I often go to is when I was really a young adult, getting ready to go to college and so forth. I was very fortunate. My father, in particular, noticed me enough that he decided I would thrive more if I had some mentors. And so he arranged, and I didn't know all of them at the time, but he arranged for different people in my life to strategically form a relationship with me. They're old enough to be my grandfather or grandmother, but they're taking me out to lunch on a Saturday and having a conversation with me, and I'm learning from them. And so that paying advice forward, that decision to be mentoring, that was deeply baked in for me. I feel very privileged. Many people do not have those experiences like I had.
Yeah.
And yet it baked it into where I thought that's how we are. So that's who we should best become. So even as a young adult, to think, how am I paying this forward? How am I investing in others for the long term? Instead of how do I take? How do I get? How do I accumulate? So when we have that last approach, take, get, accumulate, we rob the world of good for ourselves, and we hoard and we save up and we don't reinvest in others. But when we live our life with an abundant type of an approach, investing in others, being with them, hearing them, which is obviously emotionally intelligent to do. I didn't have language for that then. But when we're doing that, we create an abundance. We create a rich fabric of relationships. And my first wife had a very long cancer battle before she passed away. She lived an abundant type of life. And what we saw was on her deathbed, literally, there were family and friends and colleagues around us. Money does not buy that. Possessions do not buy that. Investment in others does. And that's an asset class all of its own.
Absolutely.
And that would be the lesson that I think I learned young and have lived, is to keep being available to sow into the life of other people.
Wow. That's very interesting piece of advice. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you so much for joining us today on our
Oh, this has been a
podcast, on our
pleasure.
channel.
Thank you.
It was our pleasure and honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.